Hey guys, so today I'm going to be talking you through the creation and making process of my 72-inch maple longbow for my grade 12 capstone project. So we start with a 6-foot long piece of maple 1x2 with a 6-inch chunk glued to the middle. You can get these 1x2s from like your local hardware store, Home Depot. I got mine from Windsor. You just have to have relatively straight grain, which this one kind of did, and that's enough to make a good bow. The main tools I'll be using are a little block plane, a spoke shave, a draw knife, and a card scraper. And I also use a rasp a lot, but I didn't put that on the desk. A really important part of getting good results with your carving is having nice sharp tools. So whenever I start a new project, I take everything and give everything a good sharpen to get the best results. Another really important, though less used tool is the chisels. So I'm going to sharpen these beforehand too. So this is a little jig used to hold blades and chisels while using a whetstone. I got it for like $7 at Midlands. It is amazing. I wish I had bought one like ages ago. They work really well for how much they cost. So I recorded me sharpening all the different things, but it takes a while, and for the sake of time I'm just gonna show little clips of them pretty quick and we'll get to the actual carving. At this point, I started to draw out my basic shape. I'm doing a 10-inch taper to a half-inch tip, but the line out is more just for reference, side to side, not an exact rule set to follow. At this point, we finally start doing our basic roughing out with the draw knife, just kind of getting it to the general kind of shape of our drawings, and then smoothing it out a little bit later with the spoke shave.
Ignore the multiple lawnmowers you'll see in the background. I was in the middle of a different project when I started this. Talk about how the maple boards never really like the draw knife.
Now that I've finished the tapers, I'm just rounding off the back of the bow to prep for the rawhide. Unfortunately, here my knife slipped and I totally took a chunk out of the center part, which I need to stay solid. Luckily, I had cut enough thickness on the other side for it to just barely be enough width, but it worked out in the end.
Okay. I have my rawhide strip. It's pretty good, other than right here where the knife totally dove in. But since I made it extra thick, that is still barely enough. And luckily, this also won't be right in the middle. This will be about here. So if I just keep it right along the side, you can't even see it, should be fine.
Here I'm just prepping the surface with rubbing alcohol, making sure it's free of all oils and any debris left before I do the glue up. For this I just use Type Bond 3 wood glue. It's great because it's waterproof and it just holds forever. It's amazing. As I do the glue up, I was kind of nervous, so I wasn't totally focused on recording, so most of the angles are pretty garbage. I'll show a bit, but most of it's just my back. I wasn't paying attention to it so much. I was just trying to get it not messed up. So to prep for this, I soaked the rawhide for a couple hours to make it nice and soft. Probably could have let it soak for a little bit longer, but I mean, it worked. Here I am, I'm just aligning them with the little marks I made to try to get it kind of centered to the best of my ability, but it doesn't need to be perfect. Here I'm just trying to do my best to get all the little air bubbles out, make sure it's as sealed as possible, because any little imperfections under it where it doesn't glue properly just creates a crazy weak point. Okay, I have it all lined up, and now it's time to start wrapping it. And now I used old bike tubes, and when you're gluing with epoxy or chemical-based glues, bike tubes work amazing. I haven't found anything better. But with stuff that's air drying like this wood glue, do not use bike tubes. You'll see later on when I undid it, it wasn't fully dry even after like a day and a half, because it sealed part of it because it's rubber. So use an old cloth, use old cut up old shirt, old pants, something. Do not use something that seals like bike tubes. It needs to be breathable. At this point, I'm just trying to figure out a good way to get the excess hide off. I start using like the aggressive file on the back of my rasp, and I try like an X-Acto knife, but in the end I found using a spoke shave or the block plane just right on the corner of it gets the much nicer, cleaner cut. And then using a draw knife or the rasp or whatever on the outside to clear up the rest of the excess glue, that worked the best. Now, it definitely didn't turn out perfect. There was a couple of uneven spots, and then on the bottom limb there was a little bit of wrinkling. But other than that, for my first time doing this, I can't complain too much. These are some old brass calipers that I use to just take a general kind of measurement to take off some bulk material to start. After all that, it's just done by feel. Feels not too bad. This mid limb, sure. Oh yeah, you can. This middle part of the limb is a lot stiffer than it should be. About here is too stiff. But we're gonna deal with that later. I'm gonna start speeding things up a bit because I don't want this video to be an hour long. And here I'm just cutting the rawhide to length, making sure it's nice and even, and then adding a nice taper to it. So here I'm just starting to draw out the basic shape of the handle. I'm using a pack of unopened angle grinder discs to mark the curves, and just doing the simplest kind of hand rest design, about as simple as it gets. So here I'm using the chisels and rasp to just rough out the basic shape of the handle before I use the spoke shave and sand it down. Here I'm drawing down the angles and carving out the knocks. I eventually wanted to put tip overlays on these, but that never happened, so I just go generic, most simple kind of knock ever. So this is where I actually get more big into the tillering process, and the tillering is simultaneously the worst and most rewarding part of making a bow, and it's what can literally make or break it. It's also the part which takes probably the longest in person, but is probably going to be the shortest on camera, because it's just throw it on the tiller tree, take it down, scratch it a bit, throw it back up there, do it again, over and over and over again. The tiller tree is this pulley device mount thing that lets me pull the bow from a distance to let me see the curve and assess what needs to be taken off where. So, current brace height, a little low. This limb is still a little bit stiff. So I'm going to string it properly. Refer to this part because if there's any time that it's going to blow up, it's probably now. Not that bad, not that crooked. Watch that brace. Dope. Okay, brace is a little bit high, tiller's a little bit uneven. That's a bow to me. Let's go shoot it. So, looking back, my only regret is I wish I gave myself more time. The bow is slightly unfinished, and if I had another day or two, I could have gotten it to where I want it to be. The tiller could still use a little bit of work. One limb's still a bit stiffer than the other, and they could both use some fine-tuning. I wanted to do like a string wrap around the tapers for the rawhide. But overall, I think it turned out pretty good for the time I had, and it definitely was not the best piece of wood, so that, yeah. It also turned out a little lighter than I wanted. I was hoping to be in the 40 to 45 pound range. I'm now in like the 30 to 35 pound range, but it would still make a great bow for someone smaller.